Announcement. We now have a Discord. Come join the community and let's discuss some big ideas. You know, let's say you had an organization that thought that, it was harmful not to sell child brides or it was, they were training terrorists in in the country or whatever. Like, these are all extreme examples, but I'm just trying to think about the potential long-term problems. I have a YouTube where I talk to people about beliefs, like what they believe and why, and just ask them some questions about that. Do you want to be involved? You want to have an interview?
I'll do that.
Yeah, okay, cool. I'll send you my channel. So if you go there, it'll go straight to my channel. But essentially, what I'm practicing is this thing called Street Epistemology, which is the Socratic method. So I ask you if you have a claim that you want to investigate, and then I just ask questions about it so I can better understand it. I'm not going to be screaming at you or tell you you're wrong about anything.
Yeah.
Sick. Do you have any beliefs that you'd like to investigate?
I don't know. I think I'm more of a kind of lack of belief.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, do you have anything that you feel strongly about? And it can be a lack of belief. So maybe you're an atheist or something. And
no, I wouldn't say I'm an atheist. Probably more like agnostic. I can't claim that something doesn't exist. I don't really have any evidence for it not existing or existing, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to go out and make those claims.
Okay.
I don't know. If I had to describe myself politically, as closely, I'd probably say libertarian, but I use that word loosely because I don't believe in everything in that sort of belief thing. There are things out of it that I believe in, but yeah.
Interesting. Do you mind if I ask what area of the country you are? And I can bleep this out, obviously, if you don't.
New South Wales.
Oh, cool, yeah. I'm in the Sunshine Coast, Queensland. So,
yeah.
I grew up in New South Wales. I grew up on the Sapphire Coast, Maroonbilla kind of area. Well, so do you have something like a claim that you feel really strongly about? Like something that you can put into a claim maybe we don't have sufficient reason to believe in a God, or the Democratic Party is the best party, or ghosts are real, or ghosts aren't real, or...
Oh, that's a real tough one. I think probably the thing that I feel strongly the most about is probably that I don't believe there is any inherent authority with one person over another.
Okay, interesting. So, as the human race, we're all equal.
Yeah, pretty much. Okay. I don't think anyone has any inherent authority to tell anyone what to do, what they can and cannot do with their own bodies or themselves. The only real sort of exception to that is that if you are doing harm to someone else without their consent.
Okay. And how this is an interesting conversation. Maybe we can discuss this. How would you what is your opinion of governments, for example? Governing bodies. I mean, not Scott Morrison. I mean, we can all.
Yeah. I think it should be sort of completely optional, I guess, completely consensual.
So, let's governments in general.
I think it's necessary, but they don't have to be as big as what they are, in which there is a federal level which pretty much oversees everything, and it's just majority rule.
Is there anything that I think I understand. Is there anything that you would get rid of in our current governing systems?
I'd probably, make federal government smaller and give more power to the states. So that, and then from the state level, I guess give more power to sort of local individual bodies. And if I would give people the option to not be a part of the system if they don't wish to.
Okay, that's all right. Well, that's interesting actually, because I was actually thinking about that just then, and how would, let's say if someone decided to opt out of the system and then they started committing crimes,
Right.
could they still be charged? Because they're like, let's say there was a community of people that were like, we're going to be out of the system, we're going to go live in, bumfuck nowhere, and we're going to marry off children.
Yeah, that is a good question. That is, I guess, a really good point. I think with those individual communities, um, like if they want to be their own thing, they can, but they can have absolutely no benefits from, uh, I guess, government, if that makes sense. If they want to go, all right, we're not going to pay taxes, we're not going to be a part of your system, we're going to follow your laws. They won't have access to the roads, they won't have access to like Medicare, they won't have access to anything unless
Mm.
they decide to pay for those things. As for when it comes to the laws, um, that's a real tough one because, as I said before, like I think people should do what they want so long as it isn't causing harm to
Yeah.
others. So there would be a sort of a necessary safety net of governments, which can kind of, I guess, overrule that sort of stuff.
A problem that I kind of could foresee though is what if like who decides what's harmful? Because I know that people have different definitions. I have a podcast on my channel where I recently spoke to someone who she lost her whole family because she came out as gay, and her family
Yeah,
believe that they need to reject her and show her harshness because she's risking an eternity in hell. So they
yeah,
think that by being horrible to her, essentially, is what I say it is, that they're actually being kind. And to accept her for who she is to be cruel because she's going to end up in hell.
yeah,
What if you have like something like that happen and people disagree on what is morality or what is harm, or like, let's say you had an organization that thought that it was harmful not to sell child brides, or it was, they were training terrorists in the country or whatever. Like, how do you? I mean, these are all extreme examples, but I'm just
yeah,
trying to like think about the potential long term problems.
yeah. That's a really good point. I guess going back to that sort of anecdote, like yes, it is kind of like shitty situation, but that person doesn't have any right um, to like kind of like have contact with those people, if that makes sense. If those
Mm,
people want to throw that person out of their life, yes, it is really bad, but they can do that.
okay. What about like, does this extend like? Do you think that we could use actually the Ukraine situation. I don't know how you feel about that, but do you think that the rest of the world should come to the aid of Ukraine, or we should just let Russia do Russia's thing because Russia has got their own ideas?
I do think Ukraine is in the right in defending their country; it's their nation. But if any other country wants to get involved, that is on them. I don't
Mm,
think we should get involved because it's not our place. We don't really have any interest in that part of the world. We are not allies with them. Like we're on good terms, but we're not allies.
mm.
Um, it's probably for the better if even if Russia was just to completely take it. As much as
Really?
I hate Russia, as much as I hate Russia and want Ukraine to succeed, if it avoids a complete um,
Like nuclear?
breakdown, yeah,
Yeah.
complete nuclear war, you have to decide one kind of small country or
Mm.
like the rest of humanity. It's a pretty easy decision.
What about like if like there's like countries like North Korea that are people are starving in because of the decisions from the government? Is there like a moral, like, and what I'm trying to get at is there ever a moral obligation for us to say no, you are causing harm, we need to come and object on the people's behalf,
Um,
or to
I don't
bring it?
think there is. At
Okay.
least in that case, if you don't want to help someone, you don't have to.
Okay.
You probably should, um, but you don't actually have any obligation to do so. Like if you saw someone get hit by a car, technically you don't have to help do anything, but you probably should because it's the right thing to do.
Interesting. Have you heard of Peter Singer?
No.
He's an Australian philosopher. He's actually one of the most well-known philosophers around the world that are still living. And he wrote this book called, I've got it behind me somewhere, called The Life You Can Save. And he has this allegory in it. I'd like to run this allegory by you to see where you kind of land with it because you have an interesting perspective. The allegory is essentially you're walking past a pond and you see a child drowning. And you can save this child from drowning, but there's a 50-50 chance you'll also drown. Would you be morally obliged to save that child, or would it just be morally virtuous? That is something that people go, well done, you know, good job for being heroic. Would you say it's morally virtuous or you're morally obligated to?
I think for myself, I can only speak for myself in this. I would say it's more of an obligation because that's how I like to live my life.
Mm-hmm.
But if someone else was in those same shoes and they decided not to, then
you wouldn't condemn them morally, like you wouldn't say.
Because it's a 50-50 chance.
Okay. What about?
It's not an easy decision. If you were there in that moment, you're probably more likely just to freeze up and it'll be too late before you can make a decision anyway.
Yeah, that's a good point. What about if it was like a 99-1 chance?
If you knew those odds, you should probably take it.
Okay.
But in real life, you don't have odds. You don't know what this is like.
No, yeah.
The chances are.
Well, what his book does is he goes into like the next stage and he says, let's say you could save the child's life, but you would 100% ruin your $50 shoes. And that was the only risk that you had. You would ruin your $50 pair of shoes. Would it be an obligation then to save the child's life? Like for everyone.
For everyone?
Like would that person be seen as a moral monster? Like ostracized from society essentially if they watch that kid drown to save their $50 shoes?
I'd probably say yes. Because at least how I view things, a $50 pair of shoes is not worth more than a person's life. But again, if that is the decision that they want to make, that is up to them.
Yeah. So in his book, just to kind of cut to the chase, in his book, and I haven't read it, I've just heard the arguments. I've got to read it though. He essentially says, now what if you can't see the child? And then you go, oh, same situation, the child's going to die. What if you can't hear the child? Same situation. And eventually he brings to the point, well, like, you know, there are these places you can donate $50 and save a child's life. So are you morally obligated? And then suddenly it like brings to reality. That's why it's called The Life You Can Save. I think it's not $50. It might be $100 or something. And obviously there are problems with charities and stuff. That's a whole other thing. But it's interesting. Yeah. It's interesting that you say that they're obliged to do so, or you feel like you're obliged to do so if you see a drowning child, though. It's an interesting thing. So what would change your mind, just to wrap this up, what would change your mind on the perspective that people need to have authority put over them or on them? There needs to be like a hierarchy in society. Could you ever get to that?
I don't believe in a sort of like a vertical sort of hierarchy where it's just one person over another and one person just makes decisions over another. I think it's more of like a horizontal hierarchy where people work together and make decisions together rather than it's just one person. You can have leaders, but you can't have, I guess, authority figures. If that makes sense. I don't think that's something that I can really sort of change on unless I don't know, I experience something where completely changes it.
If you could have if you had like a crystal ball, right, and there was two ships sailing to two different islands and they were going to start two new tribes, right, and you had a crystal ball and you could see into the future and you could see that one had like an authoritarian style government where they ruled with an iron fist and they told people where to go and what to do, and the other one was just free, everyone was free, they didn't really have a government. but it was horizontal, like you say. Let's say you had a crystal ball and you could look 100 years in the future and you could see that the authoritarian government, the people were genuinely happier and lived a more flourishing life, or whatever metrics you want to use, and the liberal society wasn't. Would that shift your perspective? Like, in other words, should people have the choice to choose an outcome that is like objectively worse for them? Like, or should people be given a life that they find better, but they don't have as much choice?
I would choose having the choice over having no choice any day.
Interesting. It's cool.
Because at least what I find to make me happy, what I want in life, is a lot different to what everyone else wants. Most people want to, just work a stable 9 to 5, make money, grow up, have kids, and all that, and sort of live that very, I guess, what's it called? I guess like cut and paste kind of life. I don't really want that. I want to be able to go around and do almost anything that I want. If I want to go buy a property in the middle of absolutely nowhere and have a range in my backyard with 100 different weapons, I think I should be allowed to do that.
Okay.
If I was given the choice, I would take that. If I could cross states or cross countries without a visa, I would do so.
Interesting. What about though? What about if look, just going to the gun argument? Let's say we were I want the ability to have a gun in have 100 guns on my property. What if that we say, okay, as a society we're going to allow guns if people want a lot of guns on their property, but then as a result, more guns are in society and then more dangerous and violent crimes are committed. Wouldn't that be limiting the freedom of other people who just want to live in a society without guns? Because now they don't have a choice.
No, I don't think that. I don't think having a weapon makes a person more prone to violence.
Mm-hmm.
I think what makes a person violent and wants to commit crimes are underlying factors. The biggest one most being poverty,
mm-hmm.
and lack of education. If you cut out those underlying problems, you have less crime in all spectrums, but especially in violent crime. Because what reasons does someone have to kill someone just because they have access to a weapon? If you put a knife in your hands right now, I don't think you would feel inclined to kill anyone.
No, but it's probably easier to kill someone with a gun than a knife, right?
Depends on the range.
I guess so. Well, what about just suicides, right? If I had a button on my desk that I could press that would kill me, and everyone had this button, a lot more people would die because it's a lot harder to get a rope and hang yourself. It's a lot more dramatic than it would be to just press a button to kill yourself. And so even just looking at suicides, do we want to put roadblocks in to stop people from killing themselves in a moment of weakness?
No, I think that is their choice. Okay. Yeah, it sounds really bad, but that is their choice to make.
Okay. All right. I think I actually agree with you. I'm for I need to clarify this. I don't think people should be shooting themselves in the head, but I do think that I do agree with euthanasia and things like that in hospitals and stuff.
Yeah.
But because people should have the right to life, their life, choosing with their life. But the problem I see with what you're saying is there are victims through all of this. So someone has the right to take their life, but then they've crippled their entire family. Their family is never the same. They're carrying this weight, and then as a result, you have these knock-on effects where they're miserable. The dad can't go to work. The family turns to drugs. They go into poverty, and now you've got more poverty, and then you got more crime, and then you got more guns, and it's a self-perpetuating thing. So for me, I actually take an opposite approach. I am quite liberal when it comes to I don't know, certain drugs and stuff and things like that.
Yeah.
But I think I want guns to stay the fuck out of Australia, in my opinion. But that's just me. Yeah. But yeah, interesting conversation. Thanks for having a chat.